My name is Alessia. I'm the co-founder of Code and Wonder, a digital agency actually based around the corner over there. And today we're gonna explore a lot of things about components and how to unlock the build mode. So let's dive in. So how many of you had clients being like, oh, I want the ability to easily create new pages, change everything, and that's kind of what Webflow sells to them, being like, oh, no worries, you can go in. And then what often happens is you start seeing all these classes popping up, and all of a sudden they call you in a panic being like, everything has changed on the site when they change one thing tied to that one class that it's used throughout the site, and then all of a sudden everything is broken. So what Webflow actually introduced to kind of solve that problem is, the marketeer kind of site level role, where they only have access to build mode, which only has access to static page templates, which only has access through the page slot. How many of you are kind of have used those features or are familiar with those?
Enterprise, right?
No, it's actually all plans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so basically, do you remember way back you had the option for the editor, or like the content editor mode, which was that weird with like equal edit URL, and then it was very limiting, and it's still like you can still use it, and you can add, what is it, like 10 contributors or whatever it is, something like that. And then they kind of introduced this build mode, which is in between. So it's in between the designer and that. So it's a lot more restricting compared to the designer, but also allows you to do a lot more compared to the original edit mode. But for those of you who try to use it, you often go into that, which is like, oh, only components are allowed in page slot. So it can become quite frustrating, depending how you usually build in Webflow, to componentize everything so that the client can use edit mode. And then often the times is they just like give up and go into the designer, and you end up with all the classes anyway. So as kind of developers, which I think it's most of us, designer developers, most of us in the room, how do we deal with that? And I feel like we have two options. So you've probably seen online and lots of people doing where they componentize sections, and they say, okay, this is your CTA, this is your hero, this is your feature section, and it's kind of like either the list becomes very, very long, maybe a little bit less long now that we have variables, but it's still a little bit restrictive in the sense that you have to plan for all those different sections. And then the challenge that I gave myself was, can we build a flexible kind of componentized building blocks that allows you to create lots of different layouts, and it's not necessarily tied to a section. And this could be used by the clients if maybe they're a bit more technical, and developers alike. So the whole system was initially thought for more developers than clients, but I've had clients who take it on board, especially if they have more technical people as part of the team. And that's where kind of this blocks came about. Title's still work in progress. I'm still not set on the name. I'm never set on a name, so it might change at some point. But we'll see where it goes. But today, I wanted to give you, actually before I go into that, one more slide. Kind of like the basics of how blocks was kind of thought out and the pillars that it lays on. So first of all, we've got slots. So when Webflow introduced slots, not only you are able to do add components within components, but also enable you to kind of create what I call layout components. So you can have just a grid with like nothing inside, and that would be the slot where you put your other components in. and I'll show you in a minute. The second bit, which only came out, was it a month ago or so, is variables. So you can add, kind of change the CSS of a set component to create lots of variables for it. And then you have, I guess, a variation of Atomic CSS. And what Atomic CSS is you create specific classes for a specific property of that CSS. So you might just control the gap of a grid and nothing else. And then you kind of stack those classes to create the layout that you want. So those are kind of like the three pillars that I want you to keep in mind when we'll go through the live demo, because that will make a lot more sense when I show it to you. So I thought we could play it out and do a bit of role playing. And I don't know if you ever came across a situation where you're part of a team. Let's say me and Dan, we're working in the same agency. We're working on the same project, and the client already scheduled all this work that you're working on, and it's all customized, so you 100% need the designer mode. You cannot steer away from that. And as you know, there's only one designer seat. So I receive a call from the client being like, we're launching a campaign and it's going live tonight, but I completely forgot the landing page because we all know how clients are. So I need it for you to design or create this landing page, which is slightly different from all the other pages that we have, and I only have access to build mode. So that's the scenario that we're gonna kind of try out. And I want Ben here to be the client.
I'm the client.
Role change.
Give it to me in 90 seconds.
And, oh, this is very low. I feel even shorter than I am.
Also, have it for free.
So, good point. Okay, great. Okay, so this is actually already a clonable that you can clone. I'd say it's always work in progress, so I've got a changelog here that you can keep track of what I'm changing. But it's a clonable because I want everyone to feed in and tell me what's working, what's not working for you guys, and kind of like build together. But let's get started. So is it very small for you? No, it's fine. Okay, it's very small for me, but it's all good. Let's switch over to build mode. And usually you can't do anything from here. But Ben here wants me to put up a page in 10 minutes for this campaign that you forgot a landing page for.
I just told a potential customer that they need to look at our website and it's not ready. Can you put a page up in 10 minutes?
Okay, fine. Okay, and you're the kind of client that looks over my shoulder and tells me what to do.
Yeah.
Okay, that kind of client.
I know what I want. Can you just do it?
Do it, yeah. I'll read your mind. It's fine. So one thing that you can do in page mode is if you set up any of these static page templates, you can create a page based on this. So let's take the basic page template. Let's create this new landing page for your campaign. You'll enter the metadata later. I'm not doing that. But you land here. And what the kind of static page template does is, well, depending how you set it up, I already set it up that it automatically adds the navigation. It automatically adds kind of my custom classes, the footer, although it's just a blue bar in this case. And in the middle, what you see is this page slot, which, yeah, you can only have one per page, I think. Can you have multiple? You can have multiple, okay. But basically, this page slot is where the build mode person can add in the components. Right, okay. Ben, what do you want?
Well, firstly, we need to start with the hero section.
Okay, so
It needs a compelling value proposition and a paragraph to support it.
Okay, cool. So,
You're gonna say like a crazy GSAT validation.
well, don't kill me here.
And a right validation. And some 3D.
Okay, well, if you componentize all of those, I could drop them in, but I haven't for this one. And also, okay, great. And also just to note, I'm using the boilerplate, so there's barely any design to this. So we're just looking at kind of the layout and the way it works. So I've dropped in my section, right? And then here I've actually got 2 slots. One is for, here we go. One is for the content that goes inside of the section, and one is the actual content. So you want a background image.
A heading and a paragraph.
Oh, first, okay. Okay, it's this guy. So, yeah, let's do, you want a heading, you want a paragraph in there. So I've componentized all of these. And the way that each kind of component is set up, for example, here the section, you can see it might have variables in terms of background in this case. I also can add an ID for the section, so this is just attributes that you set up. But I guess more, I don't know if it's odd or if you used it before, but you can add classes attribute to your divs. So here I've connected kind of 3 class attributes, one for the section, one for the container, and one for the flexbox, which is actually inside of the container. So, but I imagine you don't want it all stuck up there in the corner.
No.
So I'm gonna...
I need it bigger.
Yeah, okay, fine. I've already added certain custom classes, which are kind of set up with all the variables and so forth to add paddings and layouts. So when I type into these boxes here, I'm typing the classes which are already set up in a code embed. So here I want some padding top and bottom, so like vertical, let's say large, in there, so it automatically kind of shows it in the designer. I imagine you don't want it to go full width, right? So let's add some max width, maybe medium to this. And, you know, these will change depending on the design. And maybe medium here, it's 60%, medium for your client, it might be 40% of the width port, like they're all interchangeable. Let me change the heading to H1 tag. I'm not gonna put the content in for you, Ben, but let's just do the layout.
Okay.
you can do it later.
I'll do that.
And let's say you want a background image.
I would like a background image, please.
So the background image, I'm gonna put it into the section content. So let me get a image. By default, the section content is hidden, so let's make this visible. And I want this image to change to background image here. And I want to, let's put this one here.
Ooh, colors.
Yay. Right. What else do you want?
So underneath that, we need to go into 3 kind of high value points. So can you do me a section with a heading and 3 cards?
Okay, so I'll have another section, and inside of here you want, again, a heading.
But a H2, not a H1.
Okay, that's already set up. And then here you want 3 cards next to each other, like 3 columns?
3 cards, 3 columns, yes please.
Okay, so in that case, we've used sections and then we used kind of the elements inside of it. What I also have set up is layouts. So let's say I want a grid layout. I've got it here. And let's say you want a card. Let's do an empty one. And inside the card, you might want some content, I imagine. So let's add some rich text, and you want 3 of these.
Yes, please.
1, 2, 3. So by default, the grid is just 1 column, and it just goes down.
Not that way.
Okay, fine. So again, I've got variants here, and I have, this is kind of important from what I had in classes, but I've got different columns variants, and the way that is being set up, it's 3 numbers. So the first number is the amount of column for desktop, the second one for tablet, and the third one is actually mobile landscape that I've never used, so it's just mobile. So you want 3 of these.
Yes, please.
Let's assume 2 on tablet. We can change it later. Let's add some gap so that you can kind of see them more, and you might have different kind of amount of content in these here. Again, we might want to add some padding. Let's keep it all consistent, so we'll do large again. We might want to add a gap between the heading and the...
There's no spacing between the heading.
Okay, fine. And do you want to center these?
Ben, you're enjoying this far too much.
Yeah, you should, like, but it's people boss you around, so now it's reversed, so you're taking revenge.
Being
of
on the
like...
outside of the coin's quite fun. Now we understand.
Okay, I'd say I would center that heading just for the fun of it.
For consistency and for other pages.
So I've got, again, a few variants here. L stands for left and C stands for center. And again, the 3 in the middle, you have the 3 letters. It's, again, desktop, tablet, and mobile. So let's say you want it all to be centered. There you go. Add a pop of color.
Can we have some colour?
Fine.
Red and grey.
I don't have red.
Match our guidelines.
Okay. Fine. Stick to the script. More. And let's say, I mean, this looks okay, but you're an annoying client, right?
Yeah, can you just like align them to the bottom?
Okay, so you want to align vertical to the bottom.
Nice. But now they're all the wrong height.
Do you want to align to the top?
I would like to align to the top. Thank you.
There you go. And then because you're extra, you want to align 1 to the bottom,
Yeah,
just
you
the
do
one.
Just the right one, the one on the far right to the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah, sick.
Nice.
Really, really, really in line.
Cool. Next.
Now I need another section. This one is going to be a text on the left, image on the right, please.
Oh, simple. So I've got, again, another section. I've got my content. Let's add in like a rich text and an image. And we want this to be, let's see. Oh, actually, let's add a grid in here as well. Layout grid, and then let's move these inside of here. And you want 2 columns.
Ooh, like that, yeah.
Yeah. You want a gap between the 2.
Just a small gap.
Small one.
Maybe a medium gap.
Medium.
Nice.
Great. Let's align.
What's new?
There we go.
Amazing. But now I'd like to change the background of this section because there's too much white.
Okay.
Grey will be fine.
Okay. Nice.
But could you perhaps align the content to the center rather than to the left?
I did it in the center. Vertical to the center.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. Done.
That's-
I read your mind.
Yeah, nice. One step ahead. You're the best agency ever.
And another section?
Yes, I'd like a swiper carousel, actually.
What, a Swiper JS one?
Well, perhaps. Make it happen.
Make it happen. Okay, fine.
That's in the script.
Luckily, I do have a Swiper container in here, which I can add a collection, or do you want to pull it from your blogs, or
Yes.
do you want...
Please, we want to show them that we know what we're talking about
Right, okay.
with all of our articles that just say hello.
Okay. Of course. Let me see if I did it right. Any preference on how many slides you want to show on desktop, tablet, and mobile?
We want 4 on desktop.
4.
3 on tablet. And 1 on mobile.
Cool. Done?
Done.
Cool. And publish. Hopefully this worked.
But JavaScript needs to load in the designer.
One day. And oh no, what happened here? And we need to add padding. That's what we forgot to add.
Add padding.
In this section, we didn't add. And no idea why this is not loading, but hey, live demo, everyone. And that was it. And all of this was done without ever entering the designer mode.
But what about mobile first? Is it responsive?
Yes. So yeah, that was the live demo, everyone. So yeah, I'm not saying that there's one way better than the other in terms of building, because like all of you know, building a website, it can be done in so many different ways. But I often come across being like, this marketeer role or like build mode is so limiting. But actually, I feel like it's a different perspective or like a different way of thinking about it. And whether this is the right way or not, we'll soon find out. But let's see. But that's, take it for a spin yourself. Download the clonable, and this is not going forward. And thanks, everyone. Any questions?
How long roughly did that take you to build all the components and variables for that?
So I started thinking about this before variables actually came out.
Oh, okay.
So all of the kind of different classes and systems, and actually if I can go back to here, I can show you quickly. So you have the list of components are here. So you got kind of your essentials where it's mainly like buttons. We never put a call to action.
Oh
my
lost
God.
£50 million on your sales.
and all of these kind of like the essentials. And then the idea of these kind of layouts came about when slots was introduced. So I kind of started working on this kind of idea or way of building. When did slots get introduced? Trivia for everyone. Yeah, so this is actually, I'd say, version 5 of the framework. Although it's been like iterative and testing out. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Are there any things you can't do with like slots and components because of like a Webflow limitation that you wish
Yes.
you could do? What's the number one?
The number one is visibility, I find. So sometimes you build a whole page and then the client is like, oh, this section is not quite ready yet. Can you hide it? Stamp, because you can't add visibility to a component. It has to be inside of a div, and then a div cannot exist inside of a page slot. So it kind of breaks everything apart. Right. So that's one. CMS. So either you create components for all of the different way you filter your blog, and add different, just create different components for each one of them. It would be cool if they added filtering to props, and then you can have one component and then you can filter it or like limit the number of items with that one. What else? Those are the two major ones.
What's the one biggest feature? Well,
the list comes out. And that's why I always feel like this is work in progress, because there's a lot of features that also need to come out from Webflow in order for this to be 100%. But I always feel like it's good to test up front, knowing what's coming, and then keep iterating and keep changing.
That's what we could do 2 years ago.
Yeah,
This is like,
night and day.
yeah, absolutely night and day. Can you show us some of the code
Yes.
for the CSS minds?
So, well, I have to change to designer mode. So
That's okay. This is only
Yeah.
for the developers themselves.
So this is what my page actually looks like. So when you go onto build mode, because the navigation and the custom classes and the footer is part of the page template, they actually get hidden. But if you switch to design mode, you can see all of them, especially the custom classes. So in custom classes, I kind of divided them into different sections. The main reason for that is because previous to variables, there were more custom classes there, and it was easy to kind of scan through if they were grouped. So the biggest one is the layout, which, I'm also overwriting some of the variables in set up in Webflow, and then overwrote here, and then I have all the different classes for the gap, and then the grid columns, all in here for tablet, for mobile.
So would the workflow for somebody using this be take the clonable, tinker with this, add in the sizing, the colors, whatever, and then use that as a base for a project?
Yes, so the idea is everything in here is kind of pulling, well, not kind of, it is pulling from a variable which is set. So all the variables are set at the beginning, so you don't have to scroll down and dig into where these are set. And then you can, change the gap in this case. For the layout, I've got the spacing here. So at the top, I've got all my spacing variables that you can change depending on the design. It might be a very narrow design. It might be like lots of padding everywhere. So you can change these here. And then in terms of colors and things like that, it's actually set here in variables. So I've set all my colors, all my fonts and radiuses. So you can quickly say, oh, actually all images have rounded corners. Change it here and it changes across the site. Same for buttons and cards. But this is always meant to be like a starting point. If you look at the components, I mean, it's growing because I've got also some like modals and swipers and tabs and so forth. But the idea is that this is the base, and then you create your own custom components depending on the design. But it's more kind of outlining the thinking behind it of how you can combine components with variables and classes all together in this ecosystem compared to another way of building. I don't know.
It's really cool.
Is there a reason why you decided to move some of the gap variables into the embed versus some of the others in the variable panel?
So the variable for grid is just the grid, not the gap. Yeah. So then the gap is controlled by the class and not the variable in this case. Yeah. But you could, let's say that your whole design always has a 2-column grid with 3 different gaps. There's no reason why you could, delete all the variants of that component and then create the gap as a variant. But because I wanted to have the flexibility of the columns, and at the moment we're kind of restricted, you can't have multiple variant drop downs with the same component. You can only do with nested components. I had to still have a hybrid of classes and variants at the same time.
The Swiper CMS, did you build that using component properties and hooking them to data attributes?
Yes, and then hooking that up to Swiper.js.
And the source code just references to those custom attributes that you're passing down through component properties then?
Yeah, so I have, I think it's in here. Basically, I'm mapping the attribute to the Swiper.js. I wish you can't make this bigger, can you? But yeah, this is kind of like the mapping. I'm not going to say all of the Swiper.js attributes because there are a lot of them, but the main ones that you might want. And I guess the good thing about this is that if you use Swiper.js, you know that the navigation and the pagination, especially if you're using CMS, it has to go inside, and you have to use custom code anyway. The way that this is set up is that all of the attributes are actually in the Swiper container, which sits around the CMS and the Swiper classes. So if I go in here, I've got my Swiper controls, so pagination and buttons, and you can style your pagination straight in Webflow without having to mess around with custom code.
Can you make that the primary color?
Done.
Woo.
And then how are you handling, would you do, like you said, you had different collections for different swipers, would you just handle that component per component because you can't change it on the property level yet?
So that's why I have the Swiper container, which is the same for all of them. And then basically inside of that slot, you're adding the component. Do you want the blog CMS Swiper? Do you want the events one? Do you want, which one do you want? And you can just put it in, and it handles it.
Have you got an example of tabs?
I do. I think one of them is broken. So, but I can show you.
Don't worry, they do work. We've used them 3 times on the client.
So again, these are the rotating tabs.